Here. I think we're live again. Okay, cool. All right, and we're back. Shalom, everyone. My camera should be fixed, so let me just put my camera back on here. All right, there we go. Shalom, everyone. We're back, and we're going to be reading now Ayub 3 and 4. So let's see here who hasn't read yet. We got a bunch of people on today, so let's see here. Brother Yehusha, would you like to read?
Sure.
Let's see here, I'm gonna have to fix this. Is this here? Take this off. Let's do this and
Let me know whenever.
all right, whenever you're ready, bro.
And after this, Ayub opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth, saying, "Let the day perish in which I was born, and that night which they said, Behold, a male child. Let that night be darkened, and let not Yahuwah regard it from above, nor let light come upon it, but let darkness and the shadow of death seize it, let blackness come upon it. Let that day and night be cursed, let darkness carry them away, let it not come into the days of the year, nor let it be numbered with the days of the months. But let that night be pain, and let not mirth come upon it, nor joy, but let him that curses that day curse it." I want to speak up. I'll wait till I get in. Even he that is ready to attack. What's that word supposed to be? Yeah, okay. But let him that curses that day curse it, even he that is ready to attack Leviathan. Let the stars of the night be darkened, let it remain, and not come into light, and let it not see the morning star arise, because it shut not up the gates of my mother's womb. For so it would have removed sorrow from my eyes. Why did I not die in the belly? And why did I not come forth from the womb and die immediately? And why did the knees support me? And did I suck the breasts? No, I should have lain down and been quiet. I should have slept and been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth, who esteemed in their swords, or with rulers whose gold was abundant, who filled their houses with silver. Or I, as an untimely birth proceeding from his mother's womb, or as infants who never saw light. There the wicked have burnt out the fury of rage. There the wearied in body rest. And the men of old time have together ceased to hear the voice of the oppressor. The small and great are there, and the servant that feared his master. For why is light given to those who are in bitterness, and life to those souls which are in grief, who desire death and obtain it not, digging for it as for treasures, and would be very joyful if they should gain it? Death is rest to such a man, for Yahuwah has hedged him in. My groaning comes before my food, and I weep, being beset with terror. For the terror of which I meditated has come upon me, and that which I had feared is befallen me. I was not at shalom, nor quiet, nor had I rest, yet wrath came upon me. I want to look at this word cursing or cursed. 32672. Give me a second. Where is curse? Okay. If you want to, if anyone else wants to speak, I'll come back. I'm find a specific thing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see here. I find some weird differences here. And I was just jotting down verse 8. Not that much of a difference, but thought I would mention. It's kind of interesting. The Septuagint, it seems like they categorize the Leviathan as a type of a dragon or sea monster because the Greek word to the equivalent Leviathan is drakon. So they actually consider it like a sea dragon, which I would agree with the Septuagint. They're more specific what a Leviathan is. Like, I hate to say it, if you ever seen Godzilla, there might be some truth to that. There might be a creature like that that's called Leviathan. And that so anyway, so I found that interesting. But the first difference I saw was verse 4, where the Masoretic text decides to use the title of Alua Elohim, because in your Bibles it would have God there, right? So that's Elohim. In the Septuagint, it actually has a tetragrammaton hinted at because it has kurios there in the Septuagint. So Job 3:4 would read in the Septuagint as let that night be darkness, which again, it's a little weird. Night be darkness. I don't know. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
But let not Yahuwah regard it from above, rather than may Elohim above not seek it. So the Masoretes decided to change the tetragrammaton and substitute it with a title there for whatever reason. But unless there's a mistranslation from Breton here, I would have to go with the Masoretic about the darkness part. It should be dawn or morning rather than night be darkness. That's kind of like a double negative or whatever they call it. That's like an oxymoron because night is darkness. So if it's talking about literal darkness, that doesn't really make sense. Because the ESV says, let that day be darkness, which makes a lot more sense, like the dawn, day, daytime be darkness. So if it's a literal darkness that Ayub is referring to, then I would have to go with the Masoretic there, because it's just almost, what is it called, Mom, when it's not just oxymoron, but when something's like redundant, it's like I think it's called a double negative or something.
I'm not sure.
And it just doesn't make any sense for say let that night be darkness, because that's what night is. It is darkness.
Right. Yeah.
So linguistically, the Masoretic text makes more sense in that statement. So as far as the wording there. So, but I did want to just notice here that the Septuagint shows that Yahuwah is supposed to be in that verse, not Alu or Elohim. So anyway, I think that's it. That's all I saw really. Obviously, verse 9 again, LXX has night. Let the night be darkness, and Masoretic text has dawn or day, which makes a lot more sense. Because, well, actually, you know what? I would have to side with the Septuagint here, because if it's talking about stars don't really come out until the night for the most part. So actually, I would have to side with the Septuagint here in verse 9, because it says here, let the stars of its dawn be dark. Doesn't really make any sense if it's day out. That doesn't really make any sense. But the Septuagint says, let the stars of that night be darkened. Makes a lot more sense to me. But go ahead, brother Yahusha. I don't know if you found what you were looking for.
Yeah. So in going back to Job 2, just for a minute, you see where, and this is the same in the Masoretic or the Greek. I think the Masoretic makes it a little bit make more sense, just because we have a better definition of the word. But so when it says, then said his wife unto him, do you still retain your integrity? Curse Yahuwah and die. So I'm going to show you the the Greek real quick. What did happen here? Hold on. Okay. Where was that at? Give me a second. Job 2:9. Okay. So that word for curse, when you look in the Greek, there's no word for curse in there. It just says, but speak any word to Yahuwah and come to an end. Speak is ipo, to speak, say, and word is just rhema, literally the same word we see in the Brit. Now, when we look in the Hebrew, it's going to say curse Yahuwah and die, but that word being translated as curse is barak, which we know means to baruch, or to bless, right? There's nowhere in the scripture except for here in the book of Ayub that it's ever translated as curse. Now, if we go to Job 3 and we look at the different words being translated as curse, we have in one, and this opened Ayub his mouth and cursed his day. The Hebrew is kalal right here. The Greek is katareomai, to curse, doom, imprecate. If we go down to verse 8, but may curse it the one cursing that day. So we look in the Greek, it's going to be curse, G2 672, same word, to curse, doom, imprecate. The one cursing, G2 672, same word. And then even in the Hebrew, it's a different word that used in than in verse or in chapter 2, verse 8. Let them curse it that curse. So let them curse, H5344, Nachab, to pierce, perforate, bore, curse, blaspheme. It that curse, H779, Arar, to curse, curse. So all throughout Job 3, whether in the Greek or the Hebrew, you have a selection of words being used to curse. But then Job 2 is translated saying his wife told him, curse Yahuwah and die. But that word is barak, and never ever translated as curse. So she can't be saying that. She has to be saying, Baruch Yahuwah or bless Yahuwah, and just give up already. Bless him for the life that you've given me. Bless him for what you've taken, and just give up.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that does make a little bit more sense. It seems like though she's telling him to do that, she's also hinting around that he should speak against Yahuwah, because she, after that, he's talking back to her, being like, shouldn't we be able to take the good with the bad and all that? So it seems like she's either being facetious about him baracking him, or there's something else under the surface there with her, because then she complains about this, complains about that, and oh, my children are gone, and this and that, and she's nagging them, and it's
Maybe I missed that word.
I think in that chapter, I think the Septuagint has a little bit more in the verse. I think it has a whole paragraph actually that the Masoretic doesn't have. Let me see if I can go back to chapter 2 here, because I remember reading this when we read it last week. You see here. Go to chapter 2 here.
I see what you're saying. I don't think that could necessarily mean. Hold on, let me see. And when much time had passed, his wife said to him, "How long will you hold out, saying, Behold, I wait yet a little while, expecting the hope of my deliverance? For behold, your memorial is abolished from the earth, even your sons and daughters, the pangs and pains of my womb, which I bore in vain with sorrows. And you yourself sit down to spend the nights in the open air among the corruption of worms. And I am a wanderer and a servant from place to place and house to house, waiting for the setting of the sun, that I may rest from my labors and my pangs, which now beset me. But Baruch Yahuwah and I." But he looked at her and said to her, "You have spoken like one of the foolish women. If we have received two things in the hand of Yahuwah, how shall we not endure evil things? And all these things that happened to him, Ayub sinned not with his lips before Yahuwah." Is it possible that she was just tired of seeing him like that?
Possibly.
So she give up?
What I noticed, though, the word that is being translated, it seems like there's also a word that says against, though. And so I don't think she could be telling him to Baruch him. She's saying, say a word against him. To be against him, it's like, if you're against someone, it's no, I doubt you're Baruching someone.
Word. Which word is used for against?
Let me see here.
Let's see, speak any word to Yahuwah.
Let me see here if I have to go to a different program here because it's very hard to see the Strong's.
Very possible.
Because until how long any word you come to end. Said why
He did call her foolish. You speak like a foolish woman, so yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, see, the problem is the same Greek word could be before or against. This is the same problem the Hebrew has with translators. So this is what I don't like, is that we do the same thing in Genesis 10. They mistranslate against as before. So and it really could go either way according to Strong's and Thayer's here. Thayer's is actually saying contradicting Strong's is actually saying that it should be over against opposite for that word that's translated against in the Bretons there. Speak something against Yahuwah and die. So it should, according to the Thayer's, it should be against, not before that word. G1726 should be against, opposite, contrary. And the word is enantion. This right here. So according to the Thayer's, it should actually be translated the way the Bretons has it, which is say something against Yahuwah and die, which would mean that she's not directly telling him to curse Yahuwah, but she's kind of indirectly saying it. She's like, speak up against him or go against him and die. So it's almost like she's so bitter at this point where she's like wanting him to lay accusation against Yahuwah and die. Mm-hmm. It's almost like she's so, because of losing her children, and she's like, poor me, all this has happened to me, and she's just caring about herself. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't even care about her husband. That's why I think he says, you speak like one of the foolish women, like an atheist. You speak foolishly to tell me to go against the Creator. That would be stupid. So his wife is kind of being very foolish with what she's telling him to do.
This is another point against the Masoretic.
Yeah.
They have Barak in there that's like...
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They probably changed that word to Barak for no reason. And the only thing I could think of is that they're trying to make Job either contradict himself, or I don't know why they would change it to Barak. Because that word in the Greek definitely does not mean Barak. It actually doesn't mean Barak or curse. It means just to go against someone. It's probably the same word in Genesis 10, actually. Let me just look this up. I'm curious right now since we're talking about this. I'm going to go to where it's mistranslated in every version. that he was a strong hunter before Yahuwah. So let's see here. Where is it? Where does it talk about? Yeah, same word, same exact word for Nimrod. G1726, Anantion. So obviously we know he was against Yahuwah. That's the proper interpretation of that word there. So it has to be in Job as well, the Septuagint. So I definitely think this is a point for the Septuagint, showing that she wants Job to act like Nimrod almost, to be opposite or against Yahuwah, to say something against him. So I guess you could say by association, if you're saying something against Yahuwah, you might not be like intending to curse him, but it's very possible you could be cursing him without even knowing it if you're speaking against him. So, that's kind of like indirectly talking about him cursing Yahuwah. That's probably why some translations say curse. What's kind of funny is I wonder if any translation of the Masoretic actually says Barak in Job. I wonder if they actually do it, if they actually translate it as Barak, because that would like literally make no sense linguistically. You're going to Barak him and die.
Yeah, see, that doesn't, the fact that that's even in there, like it's nowhere else in the entire Hebrew Masoretic text. The only time it's ever, that they ever use Barak as a curse is, and that's not even them that's using it. Like that's just assuming that the Strong's translated it correctly, because like that doesn't even make sense to translate it as curse. Like I could see that the English translator is probably like, whoa, like why is he saying bless here? And so they just chose to translate it as curse.
Yeah, that's what they did. They figured this doesn't make any sense to bless someone and then die and be killed for blessing them. So they probably inadvertently went with the Septuagint, not realizing it. And they, like they do a lot of times, they have to sometimes go against the Masoretic, because the Masoretic will literally make something make no sense. He worked on half of the seventh day in Genesis 2:2. Half of these translators have to go against the Masoretic in certain verses because it just doesn't make any sense. I do see that curse is one of the lesser definitions, but it's like one of the bottom definitions. It's not even a main definition. So yeah, Barak should have been in that verse. That was most likely changed to either promote some type of weird doctrine that the Masoretes had. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't like Job. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wonder if sometimes, like, because they were just so debased and so, like, out of their mind, I wonder if you would.
We lost you for a second, bro. I think you froze or something. And I think there's definitely something to that. Why would they change a word like that for no reason? When clearly the context is talking about speaking against you who are not Barakim. Because you can see that in the next verse. He's like, why are you telling me to do something foolish? You can see that bless or Barak should not be there. It does not make any logical sense. So yeah, that's one obvious point against the Masoretic, which is what Brother Joshua was trying to talk about. And the Masoretes could be very debased to the point where they actually have this weird doctrine that to just bless them. And I don't know.
What I was meaning was more, I wonder if Yahuwah just gave them into such a reprobate mind that when they were translating, a lot of the times, like they didn't even mean to mistranslate, but Yahuwah moved on them to mistranslate so that we could see through the lies that's in that text.
Yeah, it's very possible he could have been using them as tools to kind of expose some of our false doctrines in Christianity, like oh, Yahuwah is not going to let anyone corrupt his word, or his word copies, modern copies of his word cannot be corrupted. You know, that old Baptist tradition. Yahuwah could have used them as pawns to show that he does let people pervert his word. He gives them the free will. And obviously there's many times the Masoretes with these copies of copies, not his original word, obviously, because the original Torah, even written down in Torah, the original copy of his literal word is not existent today, as far as we know. So obviously these modern copies, Yahuwah has allowed corrupt scribes to do it. And also I think, I'm glad we're on this topic. I would like to just show how false people want us to talk about these King James only people talk about, oh, it's the literal inerrant word. Okay. All right. I want to show you a verse that is a prophecy way before King James ever existed. Okay. There were perverted scribes in Jeremiah's day, FYI. Okay. So it says here, Jeremiah 8:8, how will you say we are wise and the law of Yahuwah is with us? By the way, these are not Christian scribes he's talking about. These are Hebrew scribes he's talking about, that the Torah is with them. In vain have the scribes used a false pen. So what this is talking about here is talking about the scribes had an agenda. They had an agenda to change Abba's word. And he allowed them to be so perverted in their mind to change his word and not even have fear about changing his word. And so that's why you see in Revelations, and I always go to that in Revelations. People say, oh, his word has never, like, even if you want to believe that, first of all, what you have to understand is that King James is not his original word. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, thousands of years later from the original Torah, the original Tanakh. So first of all, it's not his original word, number one. Number two is he gives people free choice. And you see that in Revelations. Revelations literally says, if anyone adds to the words of this book, these plagues will be added to them. Their right to the tree of life will be taken away. They will not be able to enter into the New Jerusalem. They won't be saved, is what Yahuwah is saying. If he was going to guard any copy of his word, whether 10th hand-me-down, whatever, perfectly, and not let people pervert it, he would not give that warning. Okay, he knows people are going to want to change his word, and he's actually given a curse to say, if you do so, guess what? You're screwed. You're not going to be in the kingdom. So obviously, he gives them free will to be able to do that, to be in a reprobate mind and to do that. So that's why it's important to look and try to find the earliest version of his word, because things have been changed over time, over translation. Translators have not been honest with a lot of the Greek, a lot of the Hebrew. You have man-made traditions of Judaism and Christianity that has influenced translators to translate verses certain ways. So what we got to understand is we can't just trust a basic English translation that it's automatically correct. That's why I am an advocate of multiple translations, by the way. That's why I'm an advocate of that, because it's not always going to be accurate in every verse. There's going to be certain times where tradition and culture, which does not agree with the culture of the Hebrews, causes translators to translate something a certain way. So, adding to Brother Yahusha's point, Yahuwah obviously gave free will for men to do that. And Yahuwah didn't want men to do that, but at the same time, he gave free will for them to choose whether they were going to add to his word, take away from his word. And it's happened. What we got to remember too is what we have today is not his original literal word from heaven. What we have today is copies of his word. Copies. They're copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Okay. For example, even the Septuagint, let's just talk about the Septuagint, right? We don't even have the original Septuagint right now, but if we did, let's just hypothetically say we did. We had a full copy of Yahusha's Septuagint he would have used in his day. That is a copy of the word. It is not even the original word, because at the end of the day, Yahusha is the original word. He's the word of Yahuwah, the original utterance of Yahuwah. Anything that's written down, hypothetically speaking, is a copy. The original law Moshe writ down is a copy of the original law that's in heaven, Yahushua HaMashiach, right? Okay. So that's what we need to understand. So when someone says to us, oh, the King James is inerrant, no, it's not. Because if it's a 10th hand-me-down copy, it's not the original inerrant word of Yahuwah. And it's not wrong to tell them that and correct them about that, because this is what we need to understand. Yes, the Bible is a copy of his original divine word, but we need to understand the Bible is a copy of it, is not its original form. And there are going to be translator issues. There are going to be errors. Even when you talk about the manuscripts, there's errors, especially when you talk about the Masoretic text, especially when you talk about certain manuscripts that have been corrupted by certain individuals like Westcott and Fort of the New Testament that unfortunately many modern Bibles use. So what we need to understand is the reality of the situation. Yahuwah preserved his word enough for us to use it to live our lives by. But to keep propagating this Baptist tradition of that it's the perfect, inerrant word of the Father, we're lying to ourselves, we're lying to people, we're telling people lies because we're exaggerating things. What a Bible is, it's a copy of his original perfect word. It's a copy of it, not the original form of it. The original form is a person. That's what we need to understand. So I'm just warning people out there, because I know you're gonna be talking to people that are still under that deception of the King James only and yada yada yada. So what we need to understand is these are copies. These are not the original, source. It's a copy. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's even the Septuagint was a copy. Yahushua himself knew it was a copy. Okay, it was a translation of possibly the original Torah of Masha. So that's the reason our group believes so much in the Septuagint, is because it's the closest to the original Torah of Masha. It's as close as you're going to get. And anything that's newer than it is more of a copy. So if you compare the Masoretic and the Septuagint, the Masoretic would be like a 10th to 20th hand-me-down, practically, because the sources they had for it were very limited. And the Septuagint would have been, they would have had an actual Paleo-Hebrew Tanakh. That would have been the original source, the original prophets, what the prophets actually wrote themselves or their scribes. So just to explain that's what I mean by the Bible. What we call the Bible today is a copy of a copy of a copy of Yahuwah's set apart, true, perfect word. So that's what we need to understand, and we need to unlearn this tradition that our English Bibles are equal to his word that is in heaven. They're not. They've been retranslated, edited so many times. So we gotta unlearn that tradition that Yahuwah's word was originally in the Middle English language. It wasn't. Okay. But anyway, so that's enough of my rant. I wanted to kind of get that point across, because I know that's something that people struggle with, and why people only want to read one version, because they look at it like, well, there's only one inspired version, and I extremely disagree with that. So anyway, so see here, but let's see who's going to read next here. So I'm trying to think before we move on to our last chapter here in our reading. I just want to see if there's anything that chapter 3 of Ayub really stood out to me. So wrath came upon me. Weeping beset me with terror. Okay. Okay. Small and great are there. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else from chapter 3 that stood out. Obviously, the stillborn, which I thought was interesting. It was mentioning that he was so depressed that Ayub wanted to die like a stillborn, which I thought was interesting because I never knew there was stuff like that back then, dying in the womb.
Sure.
I thought that was interesting because you never think about it going all the way back to those times.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that can happen.
Yeah, we already talked about the Leviathan dragon thing, which again, Breton whale. Yeah, not a good translation there. No. Because literally the Greek word there, I think, is actually drakon, literally. So I don't know where he gets whale from that, but anyway. Let's see here, number of days of the months. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I believe what I'm seeing here, and I could be wrong, I'm still reading through it, but I believe I'm seeing a difference, like the resting place of the wicked versus the resting place of the righteous. Verse 17 and on. I'm not exactly sure that's what I'm saying. I could be wrong, but so there the wicked have burnt out the fury of rage. There the wearied in body rest. The men of old time have together ceased to hear the voice of the oppressor. Oh crap! What happened?
Let me see. Yeah, I hate it when I scroll too and that happens.
Where was I at?
You said you were at 17, right?
Right. Okay, so the small and the great are there, and the servant that feared his master. So you have the wicked have burnt out the fury of rage. You have the wearied in body resting. And then the small and great are there, and the servant that feared his master. Doesn't really say exactly what I was saying, but kind of, sort of, I can see the difference there.
Yeah. What I guess what you're trying to relate here is that there would be different like chambers in Sheol for the wicked and the righteous, and it's kind of showing that. Yeah, I could kind of see that. That's
like
definitely
very vague, though.
Yeah, it's vague. I think Ayub wasn't really given the full. It seems like he wasn't given in his time. If Masha, let's just say Masha wrote this book, right, and he's telling Masha, or he told Masha's dad, whenever Job would have been living, told Masha's dad everything that happened to him. So way early into history, I don't think they understood certain things about death and life after death. I'm starting to see your point about Job not fully understanding the resurrection. When you read his whole book, you see certain chapters where he's like, he doesn't think there's going to be a resurrection after he dies. And then later on, it seems like Yahuwah gives him that revelation later, way later into the book. And he's like, I will see him when my body is raised and all that. So it seems like as this book's being written, if firsthand information was given to Masha's writing down what Job is thinking throughout his life, and it seems like Job is lacking understanding on certain things. He might only know a very vague understanding about Abraham's bosom, is what you're hinting to. So
just because he speaks it doesn't mean that he has to even understand it, because you have the prophets speaking a lot of different things, and they didn't even understand what they were speaking. They were just speaking under the influence of the Ruach.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think definitely he just didn't have the full understanding like Yahusha had and other prophets as Enoch. Enoch obviously was shown all those compartments. So the reason the book of Enoch kind of goes more into depth about the underworld in Sheol is because he's shown that in a vision. So he's actually seeing that, and Ayub obviously is not being shown that. So he's kind of going off of a limited understanding that Yahuwah has given him through his Ruach. He's given him a very basic understanding of that you got different compartments, different chambers. and there's other books that are not inspired that talk about it as well, expound on it even more about the chambers of Sheol, comparing it to a woman in her womb and giving birth and all that, because when the resurrection happens, it's almost like a birth from the earth is happening. So you'll see allegories like that, not literal, but allegories in certain literature, comparing to the different compartments as different babies being born from a mother's womb and all that. So in the Hebraic culture, that was very common. By the time you get to the later prophets, they understood like the whole Sheol thing, Abraham's bosom thing, and what Yahusha's mentioning in his own, parable in Luke is nothing different from what Enoch talks about and the other prophets talk about, with the resurrection and all that. So yeah, I definitely think Job could be hinting to that here with the different places where different type of dead people are being buried, or not buried, but where they are in the underworld, Sheol. Definitely seems to be hinting to that. Let's see here. Other than that, there wasn't much really I could really take from this that isn't self-explanatory. So obviously we see Ayub going more and deeper into depression here. He really wants to feel like giving up, is really where he's at this point, emotionally, psychologically. So he just wants to be at rest. You see like the last verse here, he's afraid that Yahuwah's wrath is going to come upon him. It seems like, he's wondering to himself, did I do anything to cause this? Because what we got to understand too is Ayub, just like us, does not see the spirit realm. He does not know of that conversation Yahuwah had with Satan. And, what I'm guessing is that after this happened, because this book was written, obviously after this all happens to him, either Yahuwah revealed it to him or revealed it to Masha what actually really happened. And why Ayub all this affliction was coming upon him, and his possessions were being taken. At the moment, I doubt Ayub really knew what was going on, because you see him kind of like just crying out to Yahuwah, why is this happening to me? Did I do anything against you? He constantly keeps second guessing himself of whether, he sinned against Yahuwah or not. Go ahead, brother Yahusha.
I can only imagine. You said that, and I just got this image in my head of like Yahuwah and the enemy up there, and Ayub just looking up, and Yahuwah saying like, okay, have at him.
Yeah. So it definitely shows that this book, I think the reason Satan doesn't want so many people reading this book is because, just like Genesis in the garden, it shows his true character, shows how conniving he is. It shows how and really this in Genesis is where we get the foundation that the devil is an actual being, not just our flesh, which again is going to be a future study, FYI, for those that have received what I would call a doctrine of devils, that believes that Satan is nothing more than your flesh. We will be doing a study debunking that false Gnostic and cultic theology. But yeah, so, and the biggest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. And unfortunately, there's believers out there that have fell for that as well, not just atheists. So, and again, so that's going to be definitely a study, Yahuwah willing, on one of our future new moons coming up. We can record it. So yeah, because it's important to know we actually have a physical enemy. It's not just our flesh that's our enemy. If you don't know you have an enemy, how are you going to war against him? And that's the first rule of war, knowing your enemy. Okay. So chapter 4, let's see who hasn't read yet. We still got a couple people who haven't read yet. Let's see who's already unmuted just for time's sake. Sister Milka, would you like to finish us off with chapter 4? Let's see. Maybe she's not able to hear me. I don't know. Okay. All right. No pressure. I think I'll just finish this off then. Chapter 4 of Ayub. Okay, here we go. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, has you been often spoken to in distress, but who shall endure the force of your words? For whereas you have instructed many and have strengthened the hands of the weak one, and have supported the failing with words, and has imparted courage to feeble knees, yet now pain has come upon you and touched you. You are troubled. Is not your fear and folly, your expectation also, and mischief of your way? And by the ways, guys, FYI, here's another bit of wisdom I've learned from the book of Job. This is not the time to come down on your friend.
No, definitely not.
You know, this is why Yahuwah gets pissed off at them by the end of the story, FYI. Because you're supposed to be comforting your brother. You're not supposed to be like, adding salt to a wound, as the saying goes. Okay, and they're assuming that he's done something. They have no proof that this is because of sin that is happening to him. Okay, and they're basically accusing him of being in sin without any proof or fruit to back up that claim. But anyway, remember then who has perished being pure, or when were the true-hearted utterly destroyed? I feel like I'm listening to a health wealth gospel here. Who has not been afflicted as long as you're obeying Yahuwah? That's like the old Benny Hinn nonsense. Accordingly, as I have seen men plowing barren places, they that sow them will reap sorrows for themselves. They shall perish by the command of Yahuwah, which is very interesting. It's kind of interesting how the Masoretic has breath. That's a little note there. That's kind of interesting. So Job 4:9 is talking about Yahusha there. The word of Yahuwah, or command of Yahuwah, equals the breath of Yahuwah. So that's interesting. Which would actually basically be saying Yahusha is the Ruach. He is the set-apart spirit, literally there. The strength of the lion and the voice of the lioness, exulting cry of serpents. Now, I wonder if this is supposed to be serpents or dragons. I want to look this up real quick. I kind of wonder. Let's see here. Do I even have... Because sometimes I've noticed Breton, he will translate the word dracon as serpent. Sometimes it is serpent. Sometimes it's ophis, but I just want to double check here because sometimes he messes up. ABP plus. Yeah, dragon. Supposed to be dragon. ABP as dragon, actually translated into English. So, yeah. So it's actually supposed to say the cry of dragons are quenched, actually. Interesting. So I guess dragons are not mythological then. Old lion has perished for the want of food, and the lion's whelps have forsaken one another. His fearful vision to the humble, the excellency of creatures before Yahuwah. But if there had been any truth in your words, none of these evils would have befallen you. Shall not my ear receive excellent from him? Revelations is in italics, it looks like. But terror falls upon men with dread and sound in the night. Horror and trembling seized me because all my bones greatly to shake. And a spirit came before my face. Yeah, I wonder who this could be. And flesh quivered. And I arose and perceived it not. I looked, and there was no form before my eyes, but I only heard a breath and a voice. What shall a mortal be pure before Yahuwah, or man be blameless in regard to his works? Just remember who the slanderer is and who the accuser is. Whereas he trusts not in his servants. And right here, ding, 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 we know who's talking to Job here. perceives perverseness in his angels. What individual would think that? Oh, maybe the individual that fell? But for them that dwell in houses of clay, of whom we also are formed of the same clay, liar, no, they're not. He smites them like a moth. Angels are not made of clay. And from morning to evening, they no longer exist. They have perished because they cannot help themselves. For he blows upon them and they are withered. They have perished for lack of wisdom. Yeah, see, Satan hates this book.
Yeah.
Because this book exposes him for so much. He just lied to Job saying that they're made from clay or dirt like humans are. No, they're not. There's nowhere in the Bible that says that. Number two, he's lying to Job in part, saying that Yahuwah sees perverseness in all of his angels. It seems like he's saying that none of his angels are righteous. Which again, if you're a fallen angel like Satan, you would say that because you're bitter about it. You don't like Yahuwah. You're bitter. We actually see here in these couple of verses the enemy's point of view.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you look at every false religion out there, they're all based on this, of Satan's point of view. The Gnostics, Satan's point of view. The Sumerians, the Anunnaki religion, Satan's point of view. Okay. The Bible flipped upside down is Satan's point of view. So again, this shows us a lot just in these couple of verses. Satan is the slanderer, the accuser. So you have this spirit coming to Ayub and putting slanderous accusations against these. And he also says to Job, what human, it's not just you, what human could ever be blameless in his sight? So he mixes a little bit of truth with error because in faith we are made blameless, right, in Yahushua's blood. So technically, anyone that's in Yahushua that's not walking in the flesh is blameless before Yahuwah's eyes through Yahushua's blood. So by Satan saying that, he's excluding even people that were made blameless in his sight. So Satan's giving you only a half truth there. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. So, and again, like I just was saying, this shows that Satan is a person. If this spirit talking to Job is a person, Satan cannot be your flesh. Okay, you can't have it both ways. If it's a separate person, separate from Job talking to him, it's a separate entity who's not a human, who's a spirit talking to him. But anyway, so I think that concludes for today's study. Any of those out there that have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to the YouTube page. Feel free. A lot of us are still on Facebook. I am. You can even reach us. I know Sister Sadia, she's also on Facebook as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, comments, would like to know more about certain topics we brought up today. And to all of our brothers and sisters out there, again, I'm sorry about my camera not working again. Stupid thing. I just want to say thank you for all showing up and listening, tuning in to all of our brothers and sisters out there. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great rest of your Shabbat. And Yahuwah willing, we'll see you next time.
Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom.